Level selection. You probably have seen this in many of your favorite games, but how can we implement one in our Godot game? In this video, you'll learn how to create a level select screen with buttons to easily navigate through different levels. You can grab the GUI asset file on each, which I've linked in the description. With that, let's dive in and get started. Before we begin working on our level select menu, we will need to create a level button. A level button is an interactive UI button that players click to select a specific level. Create a new scene and add a texture button as its root node. Then we are going to rename the node to level button. Now let's add its texture. I'm going to create a new atlas texture and drag the button.png file to the atlas property. Now we'll save our atlas resource in our assets folder. I will rename the file to button atlas texture and hit save. Now I'll edit its region and change the snap mode to auto slice so it's easier to select our texture, and we'll look for a button. Alright, you can repeat the same step for the pressed and hover property. Whenever a level isn't unlocked, we don't want the button to be clickable, and we want it to display a different texture to indicate its locked state. We can do this by enabling the disable property. Let's drag the button atlas resource to the disable property. We'll make this unique. Let's edit its region and we'll look for a lock texture. Alright. Now by enabling the disable property, the disabled texture is being displayed. We'll enable the ignore texture property and set its stretch mode to keep aspect centered. Alright. In the layout section, we'll set the custom minimum size to 50 on both the X and Y axis. Now let's add a label for displaying the level number. This will take the full rect. We'll set the horizontal and vertical alignment to the center. Now in the theme override section, I'm going to add a font for our label. You can make use of any font of your choice. We'll set its font size to 35. Alright, now a font outline will be nice. And we'll set its outline size to 8. I'm going to set the texture filter property to nearest in the project setting so it's pixelated and clearer. So this is how a level that's unlocked should look like, and if I hide our label and in the level button I enable the disable property, we get our level locked. Let's save this and hit save. Now I'm going to create a new script, then set its template mode to empty and hit create. I'm going to create an export variable level num and assign one as its argument. We'll declare another export variable locked, which is going to be of a type bool, and I will set this to true. We'll add a setter function which is going to receive a value. Then I'm going to assign the value to the locked property. We'll call a method level locked if the level is locked, meaning the value is true. Else, we will call a different method level unlocked if the lock property is false. We will need to define a function for this method, so let's start with the level locked. And whenever a level is locked, we want to set the display property to true, and then set the label visibility to false. Now, the level unlocked is simply just the opposite of what we have written in the level locked. So I will create a function level state, which is going to receive a value of type bool, and then we will simply just copy what we've written in the level locked function and paste it here. Then we will change this from true to value and from false to value as well. And now we can call this function in the level locked and level unlocked function. We will delete this and call the level state method and pass through as an argument, while we create a function for our level unlocked. We will copy this and paste it here and pass false as an argument. Alright, at the top of the script, I'm going to add an annotation at 2 so we can see the changes right in the editor. Alright, let's go back to our 2D scene. We'll close the editor and then reopen it. If we disable the lock property, we get our level unlocked, and then enable it, we get the level locked. Alright, pretty amazing. Now I'm going to connect the button press signal, and we want to emit a signal whenever this button is being pressed. So we'll define a signal level selected, and in the press function we'll emit this signal and pass as an argument level num, so we know what level button was being clicked. Now that we have the level button set up, let's begin working on the level select scene. Add a control node and rename it to level select. Then I'm going to add a texture node, and this will be for the background. Rename the node to background. Then I'm going to drag the bg.png file to the texture property. We'll set the expand mode to ignore size and set its anchor to the full rect. Alright, looking good. Let's just readjust this. Now we'll add a second texture rect node. This is going to be for the level menu. We'll set its anchor to the center. Then we'll create a new atlas texture. Then drag the window.png file to the atlas property. We'll edit its region, and I will select this window texture. Alright, I will set the expand mode to ignore size, and for the size I'm going to set that to 663 by 532. Don't forget to center the menu. Alright, now as a child we'll have to add another texture rect, and this will be for the title. Create an atlas texture and rename the node to title. Then drag the window.png file to the atlas property. Then we'll select the texture out, change the snap mode to grid snap, and we'll just crop out the text. Alright, change the expand mode to ignore size, and we'll just resize the text. Then we'll set its anchor to the center top. Alright, and drag this down a little. Now add a texture button node and set its anchor to the center left. We'll drag the button atlas resource to the texture normal property, then edit its region. Enable the ignore texture property and set stretch mode to keep aspect centered. Then I will reposition the button. Alright, now duplicate, rename to next button, and we'll set its anchor to the center right. Also change the button texture and just reposition the button. Great, now I'm going to add a control node and rename it to clip control. I'll resize the bounding box to cover this area of the menu. Also, don't forget its anchor point. Add a grid container node and set its anchor to the full rect. Now I will instantiate the level button. We will need to change the grid container column to maybe like 5. Alright, duplicate this a couple of times. We will need the button to fill out more space, so in the level button scene, we are going to enable both the horizontal and vertical expand property. Alright, now I'm going to duplicate this button till is 15. Great, now I'm going to save this as a scene. And duplicate this. Alright, now we need to align it horizontally. So add a hbox container node. Let this take its full rect and add both grid container as a child of the horizontal box container. Alright, now both grid containers are dragging for space, but what we want is for one to take the entire space and the rest is being cut out. So let's open up the grid container scene, and I'm going to set up a custom minimum size to the size of our grid container, which is 1152 by 648. I'm not sure that can be right, but let's test it out first and see. Yep, so we'll have to reduce this because it's taking the full rect, and I'm going to size to that of the grid control, which is 548 by 292. Alright, so let's write that 548 by, I believe that was 292, right? Yeah. So let's save this, reset its anchor, so the changes hasn't been updated yet. Let's see what's happening. Okay, so I'm just going to delete the notes and instantiate it again. All right, let me see. Okay, so we'll just need to change this to position, and yeah, so that works. And if we select our clip control and enable the clip content, only the first grid is being displayed. And if we simply change the position in the HBox container, you can see the second grid container. All right, now in the clip control, I'm just going to set the custom minimum size. Not sure if it's important, but just in case. All right, so we'll save the scene. Great. And duplicate this node one more time. So we have 3 grid containers. And now I'm just going to add a new script. Let's start by declaring some variables. The first is going to be for the numbers of grid in the level menu. Then the second is going to be for the current grid, and we'll assign 1 as its value. And the third is going to be for the grid width, which I think it was 54, but we'll reassign the value in the ready function, which we are to define. So let's define a ready function, and we want to set the numbers of grid to a grid container. So let's rename this to grid container, and we'll create an access modifier. All right, now I'm going to create an already variable for the grid container. And so we'll assign to the num grid variable the grid container dot get child count method. Then we'll assign to the grid width variable the grid container dot custom minimum size dot x value. All right, now we are going to connect the back button press signal to the script, also the next button press signal as well. Now for the back button, we'll check if the current grid is greater than 1, and if this is true, we want to decrement 1 from the current grid. Then we'll want to position the grid container node, so let's create a function for that. So we'll say func animate grid position, and this is going to receive a value. Then we'll say create tween, and we'll say dot set trans and pass the tween dot trans back as its argument. Then we'll set is to tween dot is out, and now we'll tween the position. So we'll pass the grid container as its first argument, and we want to tween its position axis value. Then pass the final value as its third argument, and 0.5 is going to be for its duration. Then can we call a play method on this? Okay, maybe not, but regardless, this should work. So back to the back press function, we'll call the animate grid position function and pass the grid container position.x value and add the grid width value to that and pass that as an argument. Then we'll copy this and paste it in our next button function. And we want to check if the current grid is less than the numbers of grid, then increment the grid count. Then we'll subtract the grid position from the grid width. Let's test this out. Alright, seems we are having a little bit of issue. Since both buttons aren't working, let me check if the button is actually being pressed. And yes, so the button is working. Then the problem should be from the custom minimum size of one of the node. Yeah, so we haven't added that to the grid container node. Now if we run this again, great, so it works fine now. And now let's work on unlocking all the level and connecting the level selected signal. So we'll call a method setup level box, and let's define a function for that. We'll loop through the grid container children. Next, we'll loop through each level button in a grid. Then we'll say box.levelNum, and to get the box level number, we'll get the box index first and add 1 to that. Then we are going to get the grid child count and add the grid index to that as well. Then we'll say box.locked is equals to true. And when we run this, okay, so we to set this to false actually. Great. Now, however, the buttons aren't numbered correctly. So let's fix that. And the problem is adding the grid count to the grid instead. Index instead of me multiplying it. So we'll do that. And great, so our level select looks really amazing. Though, however, if you want to only unlock the level 1 at the start of your game, all you need to do is just set the box lock to true. Then we'll say grid container, then we'll get the first child of the grid container, so we'll get the first grid. Then we'll say dot get child 0, so we get the first level button in the grid. Then we'll set the locked property to false. Now if we run this thing, only level 1 will be unlocked. Now the final task for us is whenever a level button is being clicked, we want to play that level. So I've created a folder level which contains all the level in the game, and the level has a very simple setup. The back button, when it's being pressed, takes us back to our level select screen. In the ready function, I'm going to call a method connect level selected to level box. Let's define a function for it. I'm going to copy what we have written here and paste it. We'll say box.connect level selected, pass that as a signal, and we'll connect that to a function change to scene. And of course, we'll need to define the function. So we'll say func change to scene, and this is going to receive the level number as an argument. We will define a variable next level, which is going to be a string, and we want to pass the path to the level being selected in the level folder. So I'm going to actually pass a path to one of the level. Just delete this. Then we want to concatenate the string of the level num with, so we can get the path to the level. So all right, now we need to make some validations. First, checking if the level file exists, and if this expression returns true, we want to change the scene to the next level. So let's run this again, and great, the button works, and when I click a level, it takes us to the level scene. However, when we try a level which hasn't been created, our code doesn't break. Now, if you find this video helpful, you should definitely check out this one, where you build your very first mobile game with the level select screen feature included and more.